Rabinda Sachdev. If you stay with us, we will come back to reactions to Trump's tariff action. But let's move first to US-Brazil ties, which have plunged into crisis after US President Donald Trump lashed out at Brazil's coup trial of his ally, Jair Bolsonaro. Trump blasted Brazilian authorities for what he called a witch hunt, demanding they leave Bolsonaro alone. Brazil's President Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva fired back, slamming Trump's remarks as interference and stressing that no one is above the law. Bolsonaro is on trial, accused of leading a criminal group that tried to stage a coup after losing the 2022 election. If convicted, he could face up to 40 years in prison. Prosecutors say the plot collapsed when top military leaders refused to back it. The case mirrors Trump's own prosecution over the January 6th Capitol riot, a trial that ended when he regained the presidency and immunity. Like Trump, Bolsonaro insists he's innocent. He's been rallying supporters in protests that have deepened divisions in Brazil. Trump said Bolsonaro, like himself, has faced relentless political attacks and called him a strong leader and a tough trade negotiator. Bolsonaro responded by thanking Trump for standing up for what he called peace, justice and liberty. Well, Rabinda, thank you for staying with us. We've had a bit of context there, but US involvement in this domestic and internal Brazilian political conundrum that has divided the nation, as we've just mentioned. Why do you think Trump is so invested?
A couple of reasons. One, if you see as an overall trend in the Trump administration, President Trump and his senior officials are backing nationalist far-right movements and parties in the world wherever they're getting the chance to, or wherever their attention happens to be that day or that week. Remember J.D. Vance in Germany, I think in Berlin, he was clearly speaking for that, and they've been supporting AfD, the German far-right party. Similarly in the UK. Okay, now talking about Brazil, a couple of things stand out here. Once again, yes, Bolsonaro is a rightist, nationalist, populist kind of a leader, very much in the mold of Trump. In fact, he was or is known as the Trump of the tropics, right? So there's a ideological affinity out there. And secondly, Lula is a socialist, left-leaning government. So, and which again is kind of, somehow engaging with the Trump tariffs right now. They are also engaged in that whole situation. So, in a way to heal Brazil, and remember, America looks at South America, Latin America as its own backyard. So they want the governments to be all right-leaning or populist. They're happy with that. They're very unhappy if any government is of the left or socialist, which Brazil happens to be. And the other interesting thing is, in this particular case, the timing. Though Trump may have just shot off the tweet on Truth Social or whatever, on a Truth, maybe it's on a Truth Heat, on Truth Social, right? The BRICS meeting is happening in Brazil. Okay, so already the BRICS are talking and exploring, and Trump has been threatening the BRICS also that they should not enter into any alliances or partnerships which weaken America's position in global affairs. And by the way, we were just talking about South Africa also a minute ago, right? So South African president is there. Lula is there, other world leaders also there, Prime Minister Modi is also there, right? And there, to see this discussion happening, it kind of, I think, will, if not it's not about strengthening the BRICS, but it will make BRICS seem more relevant to all these leaders, because they will see that the US is, in a way, pressuring us. So it could have a reverse impact also, that the BRICS could engage more seriously, BRICS leaders, in trying to find out alternative mechanisms. Though, once again, they're on the issue of, trade and currencies and de-dollarization. I think on that, the BRICS countries are backing up a bit. They're not talking about de-dollarization, but yes, they're talking about trading in local currencies.
Yes, Rabinda, we will be coming back to the BRICS nations and their reactions to US President Donald Trump's tariff action. But before we head on to that, I do want to look at some of the statements that have been made surrounding this situation. Donald Trump using the phrase witch hunt. Brazilian President Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva saying that Trump is interfering Do you think that this could spiral into a wider divide between Brazil and the US? And then what are the ramifications for North and South America and the wider global economy if there is a bigger dispute there?
Sure. I mean, it seems to be spiraling. I mean, Trump is straight off, batting for Bolsonaro and saying it's a witch hunt, which the Brazilian authorities disagree, and the current government is pursuing the case, or the courts in Brazil are pursuing that case. Let's put it that way, right? So it could spiral up. Now, the ramifications of this are one: Trump has realized or has become very, very, very familiar with using tariffs as a weapon. So what it would mean that if Brazil-American relations further nosedive, he could always say, I'm imposing X% more tariffs on top of that unless you do this. It could go down that path between Brazil and America. Wider global ramifications, I see that once again that world leaders and countries would look to try and insulate, firewall, diversify their portfolios away from the US to the extent that they can. But the reality of the world is that the US is the biggest economy out there, right? 1/4 the world economy or whatever. So all countries want to and need to, would like to, do business with the US. But the way President Trump is leading his economic policy and his foreign policy, I think countries are having a serious re-look at their whole, trade and economy and linkages.
Rabinder Sachdev.